Today I'm turning my scraps into one of the most colorful quilts I've ever made. It's a true scrap buster, simple to sew and a lot of fun to put together. If you're looking for a quick project that makes the most out of what you already have, this is the one for you. Let's pull some scraps from this pile. It seems to grow on its own no matter how much I use them. I'm also throwing in a few leftover strips from a jelly roll. First, we trim our scraps into shape. And while I don't know the exact length I'll need, I know I need 2.5 inches in width. That means my base squares will also be 2.5 inches. And if your strips are a little bit smaller, there's no reason to leave them out, so use them, okay? You can use whatever size strips you like, as long as by the time you're done, all your blocks are the same size. You can mix up your base square colors too, but I kind of like to use the same color for all my base squares. Gives it a sort of calm amongst the chaos that I love. Because trust me, it is going to be chaotic. We want all the colors. And now that we have all our strips and all our base squares, we can do this next step two ways. We either make fabric combinations for each block beforehand, in which case we will need one square and 3 different strips of fabric, or we can just divide all our fabric strips into 3 sizes: small, medium, and large. Because today we are making a half log cabin quilt block. That means we need a small amount of fabric for the first layer, perfect for those smaller scraps, a medium-sized strip for the second layer, and a longer strip for the outer layer. So as long as you have your scraps divided into size, you will always know how much fabric you have available for each layer. And as you can see, sewing this block is very easy. We just cover 2 sides of our base square, a corner if you will. And we build from there, always making sure to follow the exact same sequence. Now, if this was a log cabin quilt block, we would cover all the corners. But since it's a half log cabin quilt block, it's so much easier. After we've added the 3 layers of fabric, we need to press this quickly, making sure not to bend the fabric too much, but flattening those fabric layers without any creases. And then you trim it. And this is our very easy, very quick, very colorful half log cabin quilt block right here. And we have 15 more to go, so let's get to it. For some reason, log cabin quilt blocks just make me happy. They are so quick and simple to make. Anyone can make them regardless of how much or how little quilting experience they have. Plus, depending on the colors you use and the pattern you choose to place them in, they can look like totally different blocks. Remember when I did those half log cabin quilt blocks using only really dark fabrics? It's still one of my favorite videos to this day, and I love how they look. As much as I love working with bright fabrics, sometimes I'm in the mood for darks. There's this really pretty quilt on my Patreon made out of solid blue and purple jelly roll strips that I absolutely love. And if you'd like to see it and also support my work as well as joining a community of like-minded magician quilters, just go to www.patreon.com/seweasybysandy and see what we're doing there. I am very grateful for the support. There's something so soothing about just adding strips and watching a block grow. It doesn't require much prepping. You can do it with scraps or leftover fabrics, and before you know it, you have a pretty quilt block on your hands. And yes, you can keep adding those layers and make your blocks as large as you want them. There really aren't that many rules here. As long as it looks like half a log cabin quilt block, you're good. And as the fabrics start running out, it's very easy to get a little bit desperate and just use what you have on hand. And in all honesty, by the time we've assembled our quilt top, you won't really notice a block that's a bit uglier than others. But I think that as much as we love to see the end results, the magic of quilting lies in the process. And making blocks we don't like kind of ruins that, at least for me. Also, resist the temptation of using the same fabric for the outer layer too many times, okay? It's okay when you're doing a big piece because you can easily scatter them, but when you make a smaller piece such as this one, you want every block to count and you can't have the same fabric touching. And before you know it, we are done with our 16 scrappy quilt blocks. Now, a half log cabin quilt block is a pretty versatile block. It may not look it, but it is. Let me show you some variations we can make with it. But if you've watched any of my videos before, you know exactly the pattern I'm going for. Pretty simple and straightforward, except diagonal. Because let's face it, everything looks better diagonally. And that's how I always get myself into trouble, because as it turns out, to make the diagonal pattern I need, I had to make 2 more blocks. So 18 instead of 16. It's a good thing these are pretty easy to make. And don't get intimidated by the diagonal pattern. It's actually super easy to complete. You can either just trim off the excess and cut it into a square, or you can cut the edge blocks in half and fill the gaps like I'm doing. You could do this after you've sewn the blocks, but that would mean doing some Y seams. And to be honest, it never looks as good when you do it after than when you do it beforehand and just treat the half blocks like they were regular blocks. I always like to start sewing with the larger rows, so the middle ones in this case, and go from there to the corners. And this is where having trimmed all the blocks comes in handy. We're making sure all those seams match perfectly and that everything looks crisp and perfect. You know, as perfect as I can make it, I am a wonky quilter after all. Although my new sewing machine is really helping me with that. We are done with our sewing, time to press our quilt nice and flat. Pressing is also great for setting those seams and making sure those stitches aren't going anywhere. And one final trim before we're done. And here we have it, our very pretty, very colorful half log cabin quilt block done in no time, in the simplest possible way. How gorgeous does this look? I love it, I hope you do too, and I will see you soon. Bye bye!